All right, welcome back to another episode of the MiniBrute cookbook tutorial series that I'm doing. Today's recipe is the Old School Effect by J.M. Blanchett. It's a vintage sound effect using VCO2 as a voltage-controlled LFO. The ADSR envelope is being used to control VCO2 frequency. It sounds a little something like this. Or at least that's sort of a usable version of it that I came up with. It's pretty close to the original, but a little bit off. So let's get into what's actually happening here. As always, we start with a neutral patch with nothing going on. That way we can start from scratch and end up in the same spot together, right? So everything back to the default positions. Yeah, except for the LFOs. Well, whatever. They don't really matter. So, nothing, right? Let's get some tone going. So we got a square wave, a little over halfway on the mixer on that one. Triangle wave, basically all the way up. And a little bit of the noise oscillator. Just a little bit, okay? Next, we're going to add some frequency modulation, which of course is based off of VCO2. So let's figure out what VCO2 should be doing, right? It's supposed to be square wave in LFO mode, and with the FM and the LFO2 going, you can already hear something happening, right? With oscillator 2 going. So the oscillator is acting like an LFO. Bump the mic. And you might be thinking, well, why not just use the LFO for that? Well, yeah, you could. However, you can't adjust the frequency of the LFO with anything other than this rate knob. However, VCO2 has an input for its pitch, right? So if we adjust the pitch, which is what we're going to do here, using the ADSR envelope as described in the recipe, now we can I'll turn the LFO down a little bit so you can hear it a little easier. Right? So you hear how if I turn everything up, just the attack on, watch, it'll go up. And then it'll drop back down to whatever the other knobs tell you. So if we put the sustain all the way up, it'll go all the way up and then stay there. Until I release the note, okay? So if we put the decay up, you see how it took a while to attack up and then the decay brought it back down again. So we can tune how the LFO, the frequency of the LFO, doing it this way. Whereas if we use just regular LFO1, we don't have that much control over what's going on, okay? So that's the whole point of using oscillator 2. You just get much more control over what's happening. You get much more movement. So now let's kind of finalize this sound and get it where it should be. So we're gonna put the attack all the way down, the decay all the way up, sustain all the way down, release almost all the way up. Now the attack and decay envelope, those are gonna be basically all the way up, okay? That way the sound kind of fades in and then fades back out. Now you can adjust that to taste if you want to. I like it a little bit, just a little bit quicker, because it actually, I feel like it makes it a little more usable. Whereas without that, it's kind of more just like an ambient generator. Okay, so let's get our filter set how we want it. We're going to bring the filter down to about the 11 o'clock position, something like that. All right. Turn our FM1 frequency modulation, which is our ADSR. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back. I missed something. So the AD envelope is also going to control the filter, right? So if we turn it up a little bit, it's opening up how much of the ADSR is actually going into the filter based off of the AD envelope. So another reason why I like to have this somewhat quick, or at least not quite as long as it was, right? Same thing with the ADSR envelope. I actually like them down just a little bit lower. Our sound is still pretty, you know, static. It's kind of not moving around too much. And that's because we forgot the glide, pulse width metalizer, pulse width modulation, and metal modulation. So let's get that going. So we already got the FM. So we're getting, we're going to look back at VCO1 here. So we already got the FM going. Let's get the glide. I like the glide to be a lot faster, a lot smoother, quicker. That's just me. So adjust to taste. That's, salt and pepper sort of deal. All right, so we got some pulse width modulation there. Woo! We add that metalizer. That gets weird, right? Now we add our metal modulation. Now we're getting real weird consistently. Now the other thing that the filter describes having the resonance all the way up. And then using the attenuator 1 to the cutoff using the pressure. Just like we did in the last patch. However, I don't like that. I don't like that at all, Sam I am. So, I like to put a little bit of resonance on it. Because then the last step is to jack that brute factor into the sky. So once you do that, then you can bring your resonance up to where it's not getting offensive. I kind of like having a little bit of that, like, it's almost like radio interference sweep in the back, but it's like, you don't want it crazy. And the resonance is almost all the way up. So it's like, yeah, I like to back it off just a little bit. So using that brute factor helps to tame the resonance of this filter as well. So of course, we've modulated a bunch of different knobs in here, so you can adjust any of them to fit the taste, fit the flavor, what you're trying to do, fit the timing of the track you're working with, fit the timbre of the track that you're working with. You got lots of options here. You can have a lot of fun with it. It's very expressive. Like one thing I might do would be to take your LFO2, which isn't being used for anything at the moment. I don't think. No, because it's not pre-wired to anything. So take the LFO2. If we put that into your metal modulation, That's actually pretty cool. So if you take the LFO2 and put that into your metal modulation, rather than using the velocity of the note that you're playing, you now are using the LFO right? So the LFO is now adjusting that, right? Now, we have that on the metalizer. What if we move that, put the metalizer back where the recipe says, and what if we put this onto the pulse width modulation, which is typically LFO1, now we can kind of hear a little better what's happening now. So there we can we can hear what's happening with the pulse width, and we can adjust that to taste too. So we don't necessarily need the LFO one for that. I'm going to leave it in there though. Bring our triangle wave back in. So there you have it. There is the Old School Effect by J.M. Blanchett. And, you know, I have a feeling that she, they, wherever they are, intended for this sound to be a bit more atonal and more like a found sound generator type of deal, like where it's sort of like a sound effect. That's why it's called Old School Effect. But I gotta say, I kind of like cleaning it up a little bit to make it more synthy sounding. I could hear this as being a sort of like a sequenced thing, but like in the track that the thing that drives the track. Like I could see this really being something interesting and fun. So, you know, as always, play around with these sounds, experiment, have fun with it, try it your own way, see what you come up with, and yeah, and just be a good person, right? We'll see you in the next one.